In today's video, we're going to take a look at a dual chamber case that comes from RAIJINTEK. This is Paean C7, which looks quite nice, I do have to say, and it has quite interesting form factor in terms of its general size. Now, what I wanted to say right from the beginning, we do have to mention the fact that O11D is an inspiration to loads of manufacturers in terms of dual chamber cases in this form factor. But this is much smaller than O11D. And I'm not saying anything against O11D or anything against C7. Every manufacturer has their own idea when it comes to this, and what I would say is it's not copying if you do something different, better, or something similar to that. So yeah, it's a totally different case, and we'll get to that point. So it's much smaller. We have dual compartments, and it's quite interesting how they are designed. So I still haven't opened it yet. So for the first time, let's start with the back side panel and check out what we have in the back, because it's differently designed. As you can see, we have two parts which have holes inside for better ventilation of the back side, which is quite acceptable without a doubt, let's be honest. And let's check it out. So what we got here is you have a possibility, and this is quite interesting because sometimes I grab a case and, for instance, let's put this part in the main perspective right now, it can't be removed. It's a solid part with the case and you can't remove it, which is annoying. This is held by 4 screws, so when you remove it you get access to place two 2.5 inch SSDs, or you can even place a hard drive here, which is quite cool, and you can open this part right at the back. But what does that give you? It gives you loads of space for cable management, because you can place here a power supply up to 220 millimeters, and that's quite nice. The cables are running right here, and I think you could group them right here, and eventually you have some standoffs. Use the zip ties that are included in the accessory bag and tie them up nicely, reorganize them, and if you have some leftovers of the cables, you can just slide them underneath the power supply. Quite cool. You have rubber grommets on top, on the bottom part here next to the power supply, so if you have some additional stuff that you need to pull through here or through here for the fans, it's quite outstanding. But the size here at the back, what you could do, is outstanding when we're talking about cable management. And this is basically why we have this perforated steel, so the power supply can have nice ventilation, and the 280 radiator, up to 280 radiator, or 140 or 120 can be placed on the side. So when we check out the front panel, and what I appreciate is the tempered glass having white rims, and that's totally okay, because after all we are having a white case right here. And even from the inner part you have some dampening pads here, so you don't actually crash the tempered glass directly on the steel panel of the case, and that's good. Prevents tempered glass crashing into the case, which is quite nice. So what we got here, we got some instruction manuals, but basically that's that. You have a possibility to place a pump here, 4 holes. You have a possibility to place hard drive, 360 radiator on bottom, 360 radiator on top, with both top and bottom having a dust filter, which is quite nice. You don't need anything else when we're talking about dust filters. You have a possibility to place, of course, 280 at the top. Only 360 and 240 are possible at the bottom, and it supports ITX, micro ATX and ATX motherboards. So basically what you could do is everything. You could go with thicker radiator, then go with MITX motherboard, and then you have this rubber grommet that is designed actually to support micro ATX. And that's really cool, because basically when you place a micro ATX board, it kind of goes shorter here, and you get, I would say, nice cable management. You don't have to pull the cables from the bottom to the top, and that's it. You can remove the front tempered glass. You have just 4 screws to remove everything out, and that's cool. It's not fixated on the case, which gives you a possibility to remove it as you wish. It kind of gives you more space because it has more white here on the front to access the side radiator, and that's quite alright. The design is quite minimalistic in terms of design, but what I would say, is a real shocker that it's a smaller compact case. It's not that big, it doesn't have that much volume. To place a 280, 360, 360 radiator, if you place a 280, maybe you could go with some distro plate that has a pump on that radiator, or place it vertically here, or do wonders, whatever you wish. And the interesting part, the ATX takes out the whole space right here. And the cables go here by 90 degrees bent, and you have more standoffs here in the side, so you could nicely arrange everything. 3 120 at the top, 2 120 at the side, 3 120 at the bottom, and 1 120 at the back. Let's build it, let's check out the thermals, but honestly, with all the configuration going on here, I don't think this will be bad. I think this will be only positive. Let's check it out. So as you can see, guys, 3 120 on the side, which is outstanding, 3 on the bottom and 3 at the top, 1 at the rear. That's 10 fans inside I would say a compact case, because when we take into consideration the midi tower cases, they either can't or they don't have the side fans for intake outtake, depending on what you decide. But regardless to that, this case actually has loads of space, even though it's smaller. And what I stated at the beginning and after building everything right here, I could definitely confirm that. So it's quite cool, and especially if you decide to go with a custom loop, this case will pack everything inside without any problems. Now on top I placed a 360 radiator, and it's cooling the AMD Ryzen 7600X, AMD Ryzen 5 7600X, and we have already seen loads of times on this channel MSI RTX 4070 Ti Supreme X. It's kind of my go-to comparing to actually RTX 4080 7900 X3D, which I constantly switch depending on the case, depending on the build, and depending if it's already in some other build. So yeah, there's that. But taking into consideration this case, it has really nice openings at the top when we're talking about accessing the cables and the connections. Even when you place the radiator, it has, I would say it's something that this type of cases lack, is the access to the bottom connections on the motherboard. So when we're talking at the back side for the cable management, it's quite nice, because that part where you place the SSDs, if you don't use 2.5-inch SSDs or hard drives, even though you'll still have space, you could just chuck all the cables inside, close the panel, and it's quite tidy, I would say. Even though if you reroute the cables nicely, it will look more organized and quite more accessible instead of just checking the cables inside, but that's completely another story. So as you can see, 360 radiator on top, which cools the 7600X quite nicely, I have to say. And what I did is with standard AIDA 64 and Cinebench R23, AIDA 64 got the CPU up to 85 degrees Celsius with 5400 megahertz of clock speed on the processor, while the GPU went up to 63, which is kind of lower than I expected, because usually this GPU goes up to 65. So Cinebench R23, it started at 82 degrees in the first run, and up to 10th run it went up to 84. What this means is that the clock speeds went down a bit, so from 5350 megahertz went down to 5325. It's not big of a difference, but you can notice in scores, so it's not the maximum that I got in another case with this AIO, with this processor. It's I would say 500 to 600 lower, but it's still good, because the first score was 14,469, then it went down to 14 I would say it's circling around 14,000, 1400-ish, something like that. And it stays there. It's completely, I would say, stable in terms of consistency. So it doesn't have peaks going up for no reason and going down for no reason. It stays at somewhere around, I would say, 200-300 Cinebench points, circling around up or down, and that's quite alright, because after all, if you don't get the maximum performance out of this processor, in this case you get nice consistency, and that is also very important. Building inside this case was actually quite easy. Placing the fans at the back, really straightforward. The bottom part is also almost the same thing. And the top, I don't think, now you have standard rails, which basically don't go into that much of a problem when we're talking about mounting the radiator. At the top, since I'm already here, we have I/O ports and power on buttons and stuff like that. So power on button, reset button, two USB 3.0, two 3.5mm jack, one for headset, one for microphone, USB Type-C, and an LED button. All in all, I'm really satisfied with the case. The tempered glass on front really looks quite impressive, I would say. The only thing that I would suggest is going with CableMod angled adapter for RTX 4000 series, because you don't have enough space to place the 12V HPWR unless you have a cable from going directly from your power supply that is really flexible and that it supports this kind of bend. Otherwise, 3000 series, 2000 series from RTX or any other Radeon card, you won't have problems with 8-pin PCI Express connector. That's all there is to it. Big thumbs up to RAIJINTEK for the Paean C7 case. You have it in white and black, and of course you can check out the links in the description below, because I'll place the links for the black and white version so you can decide which one suits you best, and all there is to it. And that will be all for today. So finally, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button and notification bell so you don't miss any future content, and hopefully I will see you in another one. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.